In this lesson, we are going to take the current time indicator. We're going to use that to edit some clips, as well as we're going to start to look at the source monitor panel. And what you're going to find out real quickly is the source monitor, a very powerful panel to use in terms of edit decisions. And I find, quite honestly, that that's really the way I edit most movies. I'll pull movies into the source monitor using in and out points, which I'll talk about in a quick second, and edit pieces in that way. So let's go ahead and open project. In this particular case, we're going to open up project. I think we're in 055. Yep, 055. Open that up. Give that a quick second. There's my lovely error that I get all the time. So we still have we have a loaded timeline complete with audio and video, and what we're going to notice is let me kind of zoom out here. What you'll notice is the first three are pretty much set, good to go. The timeline's immediately set where the director's board is, so we're going to have to get rid of that. So what I want to do is make sure we're in the Medieval Villain 02 clip, and we're going to use the timeline to set up our edit spots. So let's move the timeline. We're going to scrub. And this is called scrubbing. Anytime you move the timeline over the movie, you actually hear the audio too as well. That's called scrubbing. I'm actually going to, we're going to take the audio off so you don't hear it. I just click on those audio pieces and you'll, now when I scrub, I still have one in there, I think. Yeah, I got a whole bunch in there. So let's grab those out as well. Make sure I don't have any other audio. Now when I start scrubbing, you don't hear any audio. So if the audio tends to get to you as you're scrubbing through the timeline when you're doing these edits, just go ahead and turn off the audio pieces, and you'll see what happens there, and you won't hear them anymore. So I am going to scrub over to in the timeline at 1622, just before he starts to turn. You notice he just turns his head, and this is the actual piece that we want. So I'm going to move the time indicator close to 1622, and from the last section I had talked about this. If you use your arrow keys on your keyboard, you can actually put it right at, so this is frame, second, minute, so I'm moving frame by frame. I can actually move the time indicator to 1622 right where I want it to be. We're going to grab the ripple edit tool, and we're basically going to get rid of the left side of this. So I'm going to drag, make sure your snap's on. So once I start dragging the ripple edit, you'll start to see it move, and I can actually snap it right to the CTI, which is at 1622, which creates that edit for me. Gets rid of the empty space, and I now have a cut clip where that should begin. Let me play this back. It should begin right when he turns his head. Perfect. I get rid of the director's card, and if you remember from the previous cut, there was a whole lot of other video in there. Okay, so combination using the snap tool, current time indicator, will allow you to make some edits there. Let's talk about the source panel real quick. The source panel allows you to work with individual clips, and you know from a previous section that the difference between the program monitor and the source monitor is exactly that. The program monitor controls the whole entire timeline. You can actually see exactly what your movie is going to look like in its final resting spot, whereas the source monitor allows you to work with individual clips. Let's pull up a clip in here and mess around with something here real quick. Let's go into Medieval Hero 01. So I'm going to grab, instead of dragging this down into the timeline, what I'm going to do is just double click on the icon, and what you'll see is that automatically opens you up into the source window. There's a whole bunch of tools down here below, and I'll cover some of these. Obviously, you can play the clip if you want. So you'll notice all of these are recorded with audio as well. So you get the idea. You can see the clip. It's almost like the audio isn't really all that clear, which is probably why they didn't use the actual audio from this clip. But you can move the timeline within this source panel. And keep in mind, as I'm moving this around, you'll notice that it's only in that clip. Somebody else off screen obviously is talking. So let me move to where he starts talking.
Your footsteps of
the supplicants at the foot of this tower have been released from your malignancy.
Interesting. Not quite sure what he said at all in that clip. Which is probably part of the fun of this piece. But you'll notice they're filming, and again, going back to those filming ideas, they're filming him and making sure his audio is good, and not. And you hear somebody in the background talking, but so they're not really making sure the other person's audio is good. So what they're going to do is they've obviously got another a camera on the other person with a microphone on that person as well. So again, just a different look as to how movies are made. Anyway, I digress. So we go back, and I'm going to move the timeline. I'm going to need a certain piece of this clip. So I'm going to scrub the timeline over to 2105. I'm close enough. Same idea here. If you get it close, ooh, 2102, not bad. It's almost like a video game. I hit the arrow key a couple of times, and I'm exactly where I want to be at 2105. So the idea is that I don't want everything before this. So I don't want any of this, but I do want to come in at this point. Excuse me. So at this juncture, right where the timeline is, there's two buttons, very important buttons right here. One is an in point, and one is an out point. And I hate to say it, but you're going to probably edit most of your pieces in this particular fashion. I'm just going to click on setting in point. You'll notice the highlight, the timeline highlights on the right side. So that's what an in point is. It's a beginning point. If I was to move this over and set an out point, let's say I just wanted this piece of the clip right here, I would click on the out point, and out goes that piece right there. So the only piece of this clip now that I need is in the highlighted region. I'm going to step back because I don't really need that out point. So we just put an in point in there, and I'm good to go there. And there's two other buttons, and we're going to get more into this source panel as in the next section, but there's two other buttons I want to show you real quick. You've got your inserts and overlays, which we're going to talk about. There's two buttons underneath the video clip themselves. One looks like a movie clip, and the other one looks like an audio clip. And if you keep your mouse over, you'll see what happens. Continuing on with this idea that we can just drag video clips in separately and audio separately. That's what these buttons do. If I click on this tool, I'm dragging video only. If I click on that tool, I'm dragging audio only. Okay, so now I want to drag what I've clipped out here in my in and out points. I'm going to drag that down into the timeline. So I'm going to move the timeline. Let's see, I want it at 11:03, which is, I think it's going to be just after he turns his head. He finishes turning his head. So I go back, I'm hitting the arrow keys, 11:03, and so I've got my timeline there. We want drag video icon, and I'm going to drag it down to video track 1. So I'm going to drag, lost my mouse here, hang on one second. Lost the batteries of my mouse. So I'm going to slide over to the drag video 1, and I am going to drag it down into the video 1 track right up against the timeline, which if you've got your snap on, it'll hit immediately. And I let go. And then I'm going to slide back with my timeline and see how that edit goes. So I really trimmed this clip down. You'll notice it's an overlay edit, by the way, too. I got rid of everything. So I'm going to go back here, play it. Turns his head. Cut to the hero talking. Phenomenal. Perfect. Looks good. See you in a bit.